I think it's a glorious time to be in healthcare. We have not yet begun to understand how good we can be. I think the rate of knowledge generation is going to accelerate. I think we're going to link it much more tightly to routine care delivery operations. And it's going to be fun, to say the least. In the past, it's all about top-line revenue enhancement, and quality was really regulatory compliance, looking good enough to the regulators that they didn't come shut you down. Reputation in the newspapers. The future, turns out that process management and quality becomes your absolute core business strategy. So we're one of the first groups to start to study variation in practice at an individual patient level. And what we found was massive variation, not just across physicians, among our nurses, physical therapists. It's endemic in all of healthcare, not just in the United States, but around the world. Huge variation. Now this is death to a trial. If you don't deliver the care in the arms of your trial in a consistent fashion, you can't tell if differences in patient outcomes causally relate back to the treatment you used, or if it's, really a spurious result associated with the major confounder you introduced through inconsistent treatment. That's why we use protocols in the arms of trials. We also have a strong body of evidence that shows that guidelines don't guide practice. You prepare a guideline, you publish it, people read the article, you take them to grand rounds. If you ask them, they'll say it was valuable. If you ask them, they'll say they changed. The wheels come off when you measure whether they changed. And they don't when you actually measure it. I have hard evidence, with some very rare exceptions, you cannot write a guideline that perfectly fits any patient. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just that we allow or even that we encourage, we demand that you modify our shared baseline protocols on the basis of individual patient needs. I have hard data demonstrating that they never perfectly fit any patient, with rare exception. And doctor, that's why we have you. Nurse, that's your job. You need to decide what varies and how it varies. But you stand between your patient and the protocol, getting it right. In that context, I need to show you a method. It's a systems method. And you build organizational structure to use the data routinely to say, well, when did people vary? Of course, if you vary, we don't stop there. We're going to feed those data back in what's called a lean learning loop. If you're different from your colleagues, either you have something to teach us or we have something to teach you. It's what's called a learning system, the learning healthcare system. Imagine that I make the substantial investments in data systems, in clinical organizational structure to build this out. Identify high priority clinical processes. We call them clinical development teams, one for each process. And those are the physicians and nurses who review the variation data, right? Keep the protocol up to date. They also keep track of the new science. It's a way of deploying knowledge within a care delivery system, really. I have to build out those data systems. So we currently have one of the finer analytic systems in the world, I think. A series, we call them data marts, or registries, patient registries, longitudinal patient registries. Got about 60 of them that represent about 80% of our care running. 2 petabytes of storage on that system. And as you know, a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes, is 1,000 gigabytes, is 1,000 megabytes. So it's a fair bit of storage. And about 60% of it goes for the clinical need. Well, imagine that I make that fairly substantial investment for the purposes of care delivery performance. But once I have it, I then turn around and use it. Well, what I'll say is learn from every patient. What you're doing is you're taking the tools of the academy, tools of good health services research, and swinging them over into care delivery operations. Trained researchers usually. We embed them in our clinical development teams. And you measure your success by how much you change patient outcomes in actual performance. This is the theme for my little Institute for Healthcare Delivery Research. Better has no limit. I think you've just started to see the impact of these kinds of methods. I think it's the future of the healing professions and healthcare delivery.